So we're going to start by taking a moment to get present with ourselves in this session using one of the acceptance and commitment therapy concepts. So the concept is self as context. So what that means is, from an ACT perspective, recognizing that there's a sense of yourself that is separate from your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions. So it's trying to help you to get into that sort of observer perspective, that bigger picture perspective. So I'm going to invite you all to just take a moment to get comfortable in your chair or whatever, if you're sitting or wherever you are, and close your eyes if you feel comfortable to do that. This is going to take about 2 minutes, I would say. It's not going to take long, but just take a moment, close your eyes if you feel comfortable to do that. And start to notice your breathing. So notice what it feels like as you're breathing in and breathing out. And whatever you've had on today, or whatever you've got after this meeting, I invite you just to imagine yourself placing all of those thoughts and worries or concerns, whatever it is that you've got running through your mind. Imagine that you're placing them in a basket or a container and next to you. And you can come back to them at the end of the session, but right now, give yourself full permission to be here for you right now. And now imagine that you are the sky, vast and open. Notice your thoughts and emotions as passing clouds. They come, they go. You remain the vast sky, and you can start to notice whatever thoughts come up. You're not trying to stop your thoughts. You're not trying to change your thoughts. Just as they are, you notice them coming and going. One comes, then it leaves, then there's the next. Or perhaps you notice sensations in your body. Perhaps there's pain somewhere. Perhaps there's tingling. Just noticing it as the vast sky, open, curious. One of the key distinctions in acceptance and commitment therapy is accepting what we experience as it is, not trying to change anything. So just be paying attention to what you're experiencing. And notice how the sky remains unchanged despite the clouds drifting by, despite the thoughts. So that part of your awareness is always available to you. And then when you're ready, coming back into the space, giving yourself a bit of a wiggle or moving, whatever it feels like, opening your eyes just to come back. Take a breath and welcome. So now I'm going to go through the presentation, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So can you all see my screen?
Yes, very much.
Okay, great. So acceptance and commitment therapy. I've got my website there, and my little heart is our home. That's actually an icon on my website as well, because that's one of the things I work with people. So let's go. Oh, The other thing too is I have written a book on a self-help book on somatic therapies that I will not talk much about or talk about today, but just let you know this is it, Inscribed: Your Body's Hidden Script. And I look forward to presenting that to the group at some point, but I just wanted to flag it. It's not yet published. It's going to be published in a couple of months. So how today is going to go is we'll do the presentation and then we'll have 15 minutes for questions. And the objective is to give you an introduction to ACT, the core principles. You will have some practical exercises that you can take away with you and start using with your clients as well. And yeah, that's where we're up to. So what is acceptance and commitment therapy? So the official ACT definition of mindfulness, and mindfulness is critical to acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's quite, I feel a little bit ironic here coming to India to talk about mindfulness with you when India is the birthplace of meditation and mindfulness. So this feels a little bit like all of the wisdom of thousands of years of Indian meditation and culture coming to the West and then coming back to you in the form of acceptance and commitment therapy. So this is a real fusion in some ways of East and West. And the definition from an ACT perspective, so this is not a definition universal truth, it's just for this therapy, is the diffused, and you will go into what that means soon, accepting, open contact with the present moment and the private events. So they're the events within ourselves that it contains as a conscious human being, experientially distinct from the content being noticed. So one of the key things in ACT is, just like we talked about self as context, we are distinct from our thoughts and emotions. And that's what mindfulness is, how it's defined in ACT. So Dr. Russ Harris, who is the person that trained me in Australia, and he's a very good practical practitioner, he talks about consciously bringing awareness to your here and now experience with openness, interest, and receptiveness. So in ACT Mindful, it's about mindfulness is acceptance and a willingness to look at your experience as it is. So historically, it was developed in the late 1980s by Stephen Hayes, Kelly Wilson, and Kirk Strosahl. And it's rooted in relational frame theory and behavioral analysis. It's very much a behavioral therapy. So it's not about feeling great. It's not about, oh, you're going to be so happy and absolutely like over the moon after ACT. No, it's about you're going to be living your life in accordance with what makes you feel it's meaningful. And you might still feel a lot of the symptoms. You might still feel anxious. You might still feel like you don't have any motivation, but we're not letting that stop us from creating a life that is meaningful. So that's where ACT is about. It's not designed to be a happy pill, if you like. So the key idea is psychological flexibility. So instead of being drowning in our thoughts as if they are all who we are, we actually are able to be able to distinguish a thought is a thought. It's not who I am. And I can take actions that are different from what my mind is telling me I should do. So it's being open, aware, and engaged. So think of ACT as a way to use your inner experiences as guides, not obstacles in living a meaningful life. So ACT has two major goals. One of them is the acceptance of unwanted private experiences, which are out of personal control. So when you think of your clients, and certainly when I think of my clients, most of them come to me saying, I'm feeling terrible, make it go away. That's the first thing that clients want, is to stop feeling whatever they're feeling in their body. And as a somatic therapist, which is all about the wisdom of the body to show us where our wounds are, one of the hardest things I've encountered in working with clients is to try to help them feel safe to actually look in and not try to escape their experience, but actually learn from it. And ACT is a very good way of helping people to feel safer to look in. So it's acceptance of unwanted private experiences, and then it's committed action towards living a valued life. So embrace your demons and follow your heart. It's very much about self-acceptance. So the aim of ACT is to create a rich, full, and meaningful life while accepting the pain that inevitably goes with it. So as you would all be aware from your own lives and with working with clients and also just being human, a certain level of distress is inevitable in being human. And even when something amazingly positive happens, we might still feel anxious. We might still feel like we can't handle it or we can't cope. So we have unpleasant internal experiences that we might say are painful, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong, or it doesn't mean that we should change track. So it's very important to be able to handle our whole human experience. So the goal of ACT is to increase psychological flexibility, and psychological flexibility has two components. The ability to be psychologically present. Now, I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, that's a big challenge. I don't know. Anyone else have a challenge out there just being psychologically present? Like my brain is always like, what do I need to do? All of the things, tick, 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 tick. So that in itself is a challenge. And with trauma, overthinking is one of the symptoms, actually, and not being able to be present is a huge sign that people have experienced trauma. So being aware, attentive, open to, and engaged in your experience. The other one is to be the ability to control your behavior and to serve valued ends, not control your thoughts and not control your emotions. It's to control your behavior. Very different. Psychological flexibility, that's the key with ACT. I've mentioned it a few times. It's going to be something that is hopefully you'll take away with you. So the ability to contact the present moment and the psychological reactions it produces as fully conscious human being, as in we're not trying to run away from ourselves. We're not into like we think about addiction, and we all have things we do to check out, to escape our experience. So fully conscious means being really present with it, based on the situation, to persist with or change behavior, so we can make informed decisions about how we're reacting. This is going to be I find every time I do a training, this next point I make is the hardest one for people to grasp, because we're so addicted to changing how we feel. In ACT, there is no goal of symptom reduction. Now, I don't know how many of you are like, what the heck, why are we even here then? So the symptom reduction frequently happens, but it's simply a fortuitous byproduct, not a goal. Again, it's being able to step back from and accept what's going on, accept the symptoms, and then take committed action. It's not about feeling good. So this is going to be quite challenging, because once we have this goal, so we have to feel better, we have to reduce symptoms, we're instantly in conflict with ourselves, because it's not the reality of where we are right now. And so ACT is all about the acceptance of our current experience actually does reduce, at least partially, the symptoms, because at least takes away the internal fight. So that's a really big one, and you'll probably, some of you might have left already after this, but stay on, stay tuned. There's a lot of good stuff in ACT. I love this. I use ACT with all my clients. Like it's foundational for me, because it's so helpful for people to learn to put down the fight with themselves. So this is the whole model. You've got it right there. There's a lot more behind it, but these are all the different components of acceptance and commitment therapy. If you want to look at what is this model, this is it. So at the center, we have psychological flexibility. Now, these concepts around the edge are not circular. There's not a pattern like present moment leads to good, clear values, leads to committed action. It's not linear. You work wherever your client is at. So they're different and they all kind of weave together in their own way. So the core components, one of them is the present moment. So mostly our minds are thinking about the past or worrying about the future. So it's about coming back to the here and now. So I'm going to give you a moment to practice this one using an ACT strategy. So I'm going to invite you to take 5 things. This is one of the strategies, 5 things. So just take a look around the room that you're in now and have a look and name in your mind 5 things you can see. Just have a look. There may be little things that you haven't noticed before. Perhaps the way the light is in the room. Just have a look.
Just see or hear?
See what you can see.
Okay.
5 things you can see. And now take a moment to listen and notice 5 sounds that you can hear. They might be inside the room, maybe outside the room. And if you can't find 5, that's fine. Just notice what you notice, not a numbers game. And then now take a moment to think of 5 things, or not think, tune into, notice 5 things you can feel on your body. So it might be warmth or coolness on your skin. It might be the pressure of your seat on the chair. Might be some uneasiness in your stomach, whatever you're noticing. Just take a moment to check in and notice. Remember, you're not trying to change them. Your mind, especially when you check in with what you're feeling, might start to go, oh gosh, I've got pain. I hate that pain. Why is it still there? Just notice that's the mind. It's addicted to changing things. So that's present moment. Now, some of you will be using some of these sorts of strategies already, and a lot of this sort of work. This gives you just a different frame for how they can all connect together as well. So I'm not assuming that you have no knowledge of any of these concepts. I'm sure you've got a lot. So I'm just using it from an ACT perspective. So another one is allowing, making space for feelings rather than trying to avoid them. They'll come and they'll go, but they don't have to have control. But you don't have control over them. I was about to say, and they don't have to control you. So you do not have control over your feelings. We have the illusion of control, and often our clients are like, oh no, I have control over my feelings. When I go to the gym, I feel better. When I have a beer or 10, I feel better, whatever it is. But that's not them controlling their emotions. That's them finding things that happen to change how they feel. They can't willingly say, I want to feel better, and we feel better. So that's what control is. So allowing, and there are some practical exercises that ACT gives you to be able to work with clients to make space for what they're feeling, the sensations that they are in their body through the breath and through some of the visualizations and meditation processes. The next one is defusion. And I'm going to give you a strategy shortly on that one that you can practice as well. So I'm going to invite you to start thinking about something in your life that may be a challenge for you, that you've got some emotional heat with. Could be a relationship with somebody. It could be an issue at work. It could be your health. Anything. You don't have to share it with anyone out loud, but just think about it, because I'm going to give you a strategy. And we're going to walk you through a strategy that you can use using ACT around that issue. So diffusion, you're not your thoughts. So often I often say to clients, we have our thoughts here. I don't know if you can see me with the sharing. But anyway, we have our thoughts, and then we have who we are. And what happens when we're fused is they're merged as if we are our thoughts. And then our thoughts take us on this journey like a roller coaster. Sometimes we're really happy, sometimes we're really sad, sometimes we're angry, because our thoughts have got us, like they're pulling us around. And diffusion is an opportunity to step back and say, the thoughts are over here and I'm over here. It's like having brakes on a car, where you might be going at 100 kilometers an hour and you're heading towards a brick wall. And diffusion allows you to kind of step back from that velocity and put the brakes on, so you can make another choice. You can start to become mindful. Actually, I'm not my thoughts, so perhaps I can make another choice. They don't make the thoughts go away. Again, the addiction we have to change, but they give you some oxygen to start to look at different thoughts. Radio doom and gloom. So in ACT, there's a metaphor that talks about how our internal narrative is, because our minds are focused on an evolution perspective. This is the ACT model's perspective, to be scanning for threats. Then it means our minds don't usually look out for the positives. We've got, you know how there's lots of gratitude practices out there. We have to consciously think of being grateful. It's like our minds don't go there naturally. It's not like you go to bed at night and then you wake up in the morning and you look up and you go, wow, isn't it fantastic? The roof is still here. The lights still work. That's amazing. That's not what your mind does naturally. But if the roof wasn't still there or the lights didn't work, then your mind would have an opinion about it. So the mind is constantly like looking for what's wrong and taking what's working well for granted. So we call that radio doom and gloom. It's constantly cycling in all the things that aren't working and looking for what's not working. So diffusion is just radio doom and gloom is often a way of kind of being able to laugh with a client to say, oh, well, what's your radio doom and gloom telling you right now? You know, and they can even name their own, whatever they want to call their radio station, radio drama or radio catastrophe or whatever it is. You can like laugh with them about it, about how they want to call their mind to help them get that distance. And then they can choose what thoughts they want to act on and also diffuse those that stress them. So just get some separation. And the observing self. So this is the spaciousness that we talked about in the first exercise, or the exercise I gave you. So you can stand back from your intense feelings and thoughts. You are the vast sky. Thoughts and feelings come and go. Leaf on a stream, I'm not sure we're going to have time to do all these amazing strategies, but that's a really nice one I often do with clients as well. So again, if we do a bigger training, you'll get all of these practical strategies for your toolkit. And then values is another one that I'll go to next. I'll skip committed action for a moment. Values is really critical, because the question that we ask clients when their symptoms, like whatever's going on for them, are stopping them from living a life that they feel is meaningful. I mean, I certainly have clients that I have a client who's in his 20s and he said, I'm having a quarter life crisis because his life is not where he wants it to be. And it's understandable. He can hardly leave the house. His anxiety is so high. And so the question is, what kind of person does he want to be? And what does he want to be doing in his life that makes him feel like his life is worthwhile to him? Not about what anybody else is doing, not about comparison. So the values work I've done is really quite deep. It's not just I value abundance. And, like we have a lot of these manifestation type ideas about we want to make lots of money and do all the things. This is different. This is very much about our core sense of self. And then their current symptoms are getting in their way. Their fused thinking, their fusion with their thought, their emotions, they're drowning in them. So with all the strategies that ACT provides, there's an opportunity to step back from them and say, well, what committed action? What's one small thing you can do that's in line with the values, that's in line, that will make you feel like you are taking a small step towards being the person you want to be? So that's the whole model right there. All right. Now, the next slides, I kind of go into each of these in a bit of detail, but I've already in some ways done some of that. So let's just see if there's anything extra to put in there. So present moment, conscious awareness of your experience in the present moment allows you or enables you to perceive accurately what's going on. Needed a full stop in there as well. Gives you important information about whether to change or persist in behavior. Enables you to catch cognitive fusion in flight. Allows you to engage fully in what you're doing. So this is about present moment is trying to get objective, like literally, what are the sounds you can hear? What can you see? What can you feel? And then what are the thoughts telling you about that? They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. Your thoughts will say, this is a nice sound, this is not a nice sound. But the sound is a sound. It doesn't inherently have any value to it. So that's where cognitive fusion comes in. It's a nice sound. I'm now fused with it and I have an opinion about it. And that will then take me on a journey. But if you can catch cognitive fusion, you can say, this is the sound and this is my mind's opinion about the sound, then you've got more flexibility about how you want to respond to it. Well, my mind might not like it, but that doesn't make it a bad sound. That doesn't mean I have to avoid it. So we did the 5 things. Also, you can do things like mindful breathing practices. I am going to, because I spoke a fair bit about each of these just before, and I want to do give you some other distinctions. I'm going to just flick through these. I'm happy to send this out to people. Anto can send this to people if you'd like to, Anto, so you can read through these, so you don't feel like you're missing anything. But I want to get to this before I open it up for questions. Experiential avoidance. This is key to ACT, and from my experience, and I'm curious to hear about your experience as well, experiential avoidance is a key for any therapeutic perspective, and I really like the way ACT describes it. So experiential avoidance, trying to avoid, suppress, or get rid of unwanted private experiences, even when it's harmful, costly, or ineffective to do so. So that points the finger, you probably already thought that in your mind, to addictive behavior. Even when it's harmful for people, they are so unsafe in their own private experience in their body that their addiction, I have to feel different, please make me feel different, ends up with alcohol, sex addiction, drugs, work addiction, whatever it is, shopping for some people, whatever it is, to try to avoid what they're experiencing. Experiential avoidance technical definition: the tendency to attempt to alter the form, frequency, or situational sensitivity of negative private experiences. So you're trying to change emotions, thoughts, memories, sensations, urges, and images, even when the attempts to do so cause psychological and behavioral harm. So that's where values enact comes in. It's like you get to ask clients, is your current behavior sabotaging your life that's in line with your values? And if it's a yes, then that gives them people a bit of buy-in. Actually, I don't want a life that looks like this, and yet I know my attempt to avoid my emotions is taking me away from my values. So that's where the different pieces start to come together. High experiential avoidance is associated with anxiety, depression, more overall pathology, poor work performance, inability to learn, substance abuse, lower quality of life, high-risk sexual behavior, borderline personality disorder symptomology and depression, greater severity of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety sensitivity, and long-term disability. That's quite a list. So humans have been taught a wide variety of strategies for avoiding negative events, which is fair enough. We don't want to be being hit by a bus, for example. So that works in the material world. But trying to avoid private experience is treated the same way. And we've had an unprecedented distractions with technology and phones now that it's very difficult to take a moment to be with our experience anyway now because of this society that we're in. So it's actually causing I don't know what the statistics are in India, but in Australia, anxiety and depression, and in children, the behavioural problems and the ADHD diagnoses are just going up, 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 up. And it's I think it's the experiential avoidance that children and those of us that when we start getting addicted to devices or addicted to checking out and unable to be with our own experience, that all of those things I mentioned in the slide before increase. So when is experiential avoidance detrimental? The process of deliberate avoidance necessarily contradicts the desired outcome. And the regulation of private events is largely unresponsive to verbal cognitive control. This is really important. I don't know, I mean, we all know this for our own lives and with clients. That's where the limitations of cognitive behavioral therapy come in. Because there are a lot of situations where I hear my client saying, I know rationally this is really stupid, but I can't talk myself out of it. I feel so ashamed I can't leave the house. Or I know that I should be able to do this logically, but I can't because I feel paralyzed. So you will all be hearing that, and you'll notice that in yourself. I notice it in myself. I feel like logically I think I should be fine, and yet I feel rejected, or I feel flat about something, and yet I know in my head it's fine. So that's where the cognitions are not always responsive to that logic, and experiential avoidance can't be regulated by what we try to tell ourselves. So avoidance is possible, but the control strategy is costly. So we've talked about that. And the avoided event is important. Healthy change often produces painful experience. This is important. Healthy change often produces painful experiences because we're trying something new. So, application in clinical practice. So I mostly work with people who have experienced trauma, as Anto mentioned earlier, and I use ACT to help clients with practically everything they walk through the door with, whether it's anxiety, depression, obsessive thought patterns, because that's a real fusion there, and high levels of experiential avoidance. And I use it in combination with other strategies as well. It marries beautifully with other methodologies. It doesn't take anything away. It helps people to get into their bodies. Now, I've got a book here that by Russ Harris that's that you can get in India. I checked before I put this up, called the Happiness Trap. That's got a really good explanation, fantastic practical strategies that you can use on yourself as well as with clients. So feel free to make a note of that book. And oh, look, there's someone drawing. So what I want to do now, just before I open the floor, is to do a defusion exercise with you. So I invited you earlier to think about an issue in your life, okay? Now, what I invite you to do now is think about the recurrent thought you have about that issue. It could be something like, I can't do it, or that person's a nasty person. You can in your own mind, you can swear and say whatever you like about the situation. So don't filter yourself, because you don't have to say this out loud. Just what's the thought? Or it's unfair, like whatever the thoughts are. You'll have a lot of thoughts about it, but my invitation is to be trying to distill it down to one fairly small thought, one fairly small sentence that sort of gets the crux of it. Like, that person's horrible, or I can't do this, or whatever it is. Now, what I'm going to invite you to do, I'm going to give you a moment to be with that. We don't have a heap of time, so don't feel like you've got to get it perfect, but just a relatively simple sentence that has some heat to it, some emotion about this issue that you're struggling with. Don't pick something that's like fine and you've got it sorted already, because that won't, pick something that's got a little bit of a sting to it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you if everyone's got something, and I'm going to assume that you've all got something, okay? Is everyone happy with that? Yep. Okay, I can't see everybody, so I'm just trusting that. So now I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. I'm going to take you on a 3 or 4 minute process. This is a snapshot of a diffusion strategy, and start repeating that sentence, just that sentence in your mind, that single sentence, the same one. Repeat it over and over. And now add the words, I am having the thought that, to the beginning of your sentence, and repeat that in your mind. So you might be, I'm having the thought that, ... and repeat. And now add the words, I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that, and then add your sentence. I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that, and finish your sentence. Just keep repeating that. That's all there is to do. And now go back to your original sentence, just the short sentence you started with. And think of the tune of Happy Birthday. Does everybody know Happy Birthday? The tune? Think of that in your mind and start singing your sentence to the tune of Happy Birthday in your mind. Give yourself time to match the words with the tune. And keep repeating it.
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, Celia, the whole of it or only the thought?
Just the thought. Good question. Just the thought. And now think of a comic voice, a comedian. It could be a cartoon. You guys have got some great Bollywood comedians, so any characters that you like. Think of a voice, comic voice. And start hearing your sentence, just the sentence that you began with in that comic voice. And repeat that in your mind.
It might be the sound of an animal also.
Could be great. Sound of an animal's great too. Could be a cartoon character. In Australia, we could say something like Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny. Don't know what characters you've got here, but anything that appeals to you. And now in your normal thinking voice, repeat your sentence to yourself once or twice and then open your eyes. Okay, great. So I'm just going to, what I then ask clients at the end of that exercise is I say to them, what did you notice? I don't say what's different. I don't say anything else. The question I ask is very specific. What do you notice? What did you notice doing that exercise? So I'm not biasing them in what they say. I'm not leading them into anything. And they'll often say something like, I feel like the emotional charge is less than it was at the beginning. I don't know how many of you felt that the emotional charge, like it's the same words, but your experience of it changed. And you also may be still trying to figure out how to sing it to happy birthday. Any of those things is possible. Anyway, I'm going to open the floor now for questions or observations. And I really appreciate you listening. How this will work will be, I can't be in two places at once. So in terms of the chat, and so I think it would be good to have verbal questions. Or you can put some in the chat, but I might not get to all of them. That's all. So if anyone wants to ask a question, I know if Anto, you can help me with identifying people
definitely,
and taking
definitely.
them off mute.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so
That
much
would
for
be
your
great.
session. Thank you so much for your session. Before we move on to the question answer session, let me give a quick notice. If any one of you wants to be a member of this group, kindly send a message to 9447 000 285. Okay. Here is the time for discussion. And may I allow Manju, Celia?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm here.
yes. Manju can.
Yeah, hi Celia, I think I'm audible. Yeah, a very new thought and a new concept. It's happy to know about it, but I do have a little bit confusion about the diffusion part. Like if the thought which we are having is so devastating, or if it is something that pricks your heart for a long time, then that time, how this diffusion is possible for a common man, and how can we help others if we are doing so? That is a confusion. For example, sometimes the self-defeating thoughts will be there in our mind, no? And it recurs. Like one time you experience it, and especially for me, when you told initially during the meditation time, also keep the bad thought in your basket. Something came into my mind that happened today. It happens with me frequently. So if today I'm diffusing the thought, and if it happens again, the recurring event it happens now, how do I manage?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, Manju. So thank you. Sometimes clients feel actually that it's disrespectful to with such a big thing to actually diffuse it too, because there's a lot of attachment to it as well. So one of the things with diffusion is it's not designed to stop the thought from coming. The thought will keep coming. You said it's been there for a long time. That it has a big emotional charge, like it's close to your heart, and so that's something to be accepted and to be honored. What you're invited to do with diffusion is to just step back from it when it comes a little bit and just let it come and go, so that you've got more freedom and it doesn't take you on an emotional journey as much. the more you practice diffusion, the quicker it is to step out of the emotional journey it would normally take you on, which then means that you get to decide what your values are and decide what behavior, what action you want to take in this moment in time if this thought is not running your actions right now. So it's just designed to give you a bit of breathing space. We've got recurrent thought processes that have been doing laps of our neural pathways for our whole lives almost. So it's not designed to say, well, that suddenly they're going to be fine and you're not going to feel anything. All of that's still going to be there. It's just learning how to step back from it more effectively to decide, yes, I do want to take action on that. Or actually, that's not helpful right now because I have to be focusing on something else. Let me do something else. Does that answer your question, Manju?
Yeah, a bit. But the thing is, like, the our behavior and emotions, like the thoughts, they are connected always, right? Otherwise, our core belief also is formed from our thoughts. Then, if we separate the thoughts from us and we consider the thoughts are different and we are different, how this is like, there is a mismatch, I feel.
Okay. See, this is where we think our thoughts are who we are. And ACT goes into this whole section in the training about language and how language is a taught construct and language is an abstraction. It's not, it's like we have so many different languages. Even that shows you that our thoughts are, they're created, they're made up, they're not actually who we are. They do connect to our emotions and they interact, yes, but if we can hold them lightly, we have that psychological flexibility around them. If we are fused to say, my thoughts are who I am, they are the truth of who I am, we've got nowhere to move. So it can be quite confronting. I hear that, Manju, and I'm just going to invite you to hang out with that and just feel into it. It's not about invalidating anything either. It's just about getting more flexibility around how we are in the world.
Okay, is that okay, Manchu?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Manchu and Celia. Ourselves, sir, please. You can unmute. You can unmute. You can unmute yourself and ask. Yeah.
So myself.
Nice to be part of your teaching psychological aspect of this theory today. I wanted to ask you, I heard from Alosa's the inaugural, the few words that you have helped heal some 67 people's killing, the people around there in Nigeria. Can you please share some experiences, how you made these people come over that situation and help heal those people? Because as people before me have spoken, more concern is about this principle or the second process called the diffusion. I think that in a traumatic situation, is it possible to think of this kind of a fast solution? It will, I believe, take more time to heal. It is not that simple, right? What is your opinion, please?
Okay. So that's a big question, Usuf. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are bringing the big questions. When it comes to trauma, what happens when we get over, again, you will already know, not so just be aware that I'm probably telling you things you already know to some degree. But what happens when we have a traumatic situation is that we get overwhelmed. We can't handle it. It's too much. And we then shut down parts of ourselves to cope in the moment, which is adaptive. It's a good thing because it helps us survive in the moment. But what happens is that then the triggers for anything that might remind us of that event that now lives in the past stays with us in the present. So any door that slams, this was a shooting, okay, in Nairobi. So any door that slams or any loud noise, people are triggered back into that trauma response. With ACT, I'm not saying this is not about making things go away quickly. With what I did in Nairobi is I ran a group workshop using embodiment processes, movement and dance and gestalt and art therapies to help people to access and process non-verbally what happened, so that they can get into the feelings, because it was too much to talk about it sometimes. So we shared stories, but we also people just got into accepting their private experience. If we talked about acceptance and commitment therapy, people were feeling into the trauma that they were feeling and letting themselves be with it, whether it was through dance or movement or touching the ground. Like with the movement, often we would lie on the floor because that's grounding. It's supportive. It helps them feel safe. There's no such thing as a quick trauma healing process. And well, I don't think, except EMDR is in there though, but it just helps the journey. It's just helping people to just slowly connect with the trauma and then step away safely, slowly connect with it a bit more and step away safely, so that they can, in their own time, process the trauma. Is that, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Joseph.
Okay, we expect more questions because it's a session that teaches us how to embrace our own demons in life.
That is correct.
Yeah. Dr. Priyanka, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yeah, hi Celia.
Hi, Dr. Bianca.
Hi. Thanks for this insightful session. So it's because it's very clear that it's very difficult to cover this complex topic in 1 hour or 45 minutes. So with your experience and the engaging approach, yeah, we understood a snapshot of ACT, but yes, lot to know, lot to learn. I'm having two doubts, or maybe a kind of queries related to psychological flexibility and experiential avoidance. So the first part, I got it because it's a part of ACT. But when it comes to experiential avoidance, it's a part of ACT, or it's a separate step to heal trauma?
Experiential avoidance is one of the key concepts of ACT.
Okay, it's a part of ACT.
It's a part of ACT. So the components that I showed you of the model are all about behind all of that are some assumptions. One of them is our relationship with language.
Okay.
And the other one is, there's lots of them. And again, as you say, we only had 45 minutes really. And then the other one is experiential avoidance, because it's about accepting our experience as it is. Acceptance is key to ACT. So therefore, the opposite of that is trying to fight with our experience. So hence, experiential avoidance is what we're trying to help people through acceptance. So they go hand in hand, and that's why it is key. So one of the primary distinctions in ACT. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
One more small doubt, because since it's a complex concept, what are the potential challenges or resistance might we encounter during the implementation of ACT, and how can these challenges can be proactively addressed?
Yeah. One of the key challenges I have with working with this is that it's something people need to practice, and people for some reason don't want to practice. It's like when we go to the physio, right? And they give us these exercises and they're like, now, in order to get better, you've got to practice these at home. And then next week, I come back and I haven't practiced it. So one of them is the strategies need to be practiced, because we're rewiring our neural pathways, and that requires creating new ways of engaging with our personal experience. That is one of the challenges. Some of the other challenges are, because symptom reduction is not a goal of ACT, I have to be very careful, and when you're implementing ACT, to be very sensitive to if a strategy you're giving someone is actually triggering them to get even more anxious. because once they avoid looking in, they're focused outside, and we're saying come in and be here and notice what you're feeling, and that's been scary for them. And so building the safety around that is the balancing act with act. It's very much that, so that's one of the issues as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Priyanka. Those who have queries, please raise your hands. Then only I will be able to note you and I will be able to
Good evening, ma'am.
unmute you. Okay, yes. Lata ma'am, please. Yes.
Good evening, Celia, ma'am.
Hi, Lata.
I'm very thankful for your nice presentation upon ACT.
Thank
I am
you.
in doubt that is it close to Freud's defensive mechanism? No.
So I'm not trained in psychodynamic Freudian theory so much. So
Yeah.
I can't answer that. You might be able to have, so that's my ignorance there. That's not one of my training backgrounds. So you might have a better sense of that than me instinctively.
In
Yeah.
compensation theory, no. In compensation, we are trying. Our mind is trying to prove something other thing, no, for the acceptance of our stress and we are doing the anxiety reduction.
Yeah.
For anxiety reduction, we are searching some kind of excuses we are making, no?
Yeah.
Somewhat we are relaxing our mind. Psychological relaxing is happening, no? It is my query.
Yeah. So so the purpose of ACT is not necessary. The purpose of ACT is very unanalytical.
Okay.
Because analysis belongs in language. Language is a construct, and what we want to do is hold it lightly. That's what the diffusion is. So it's not about going into the childhood traumas. It's not about any of that sort of stuff, which I still do, by the way, in my work. So it's not like ignoring that. I bring ACT in as a complement to the work I'm doing. What it is trying to do is trying to help people get more ability to recall, let's say, a childhood event that was traumatic for them in a way that they don't feel triggered by it. So if they can start to think about, instead of like something about I can't handle something, if they can diffuse that thought when they're thinking about a childhood event, then they're more likely to be able to do that analytic work without getting so emotionally triggered in a destructive way.
Yes.
So that's, it's designed just to help people be a little bit light, able to inquire without getting hooked and dragged into the drama of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, your psychological flexibility, no, very nice.
That's it.
If we exercise
That's it.
it's very effective.
That's
Thank you,
it.
ma'am.
Thank you, Lata. Thank you, Lata. Celia, we will wind up very shortly. Any other doubt? Any other query? Please. Okay, Father Matthew, please.
Okay.
This is Father Matthew, Celia.
Hi, Father Matthew.
He has settled in
Hi,
Italy.
Celia.
He has settled in Italy for quite a longer period of time. Okay. Father,
Okay.
please.
Though you spoke with Australian accent, it was very clear to us. So thank you for your nice presentation. I have a doubt with regard to, again, the diffusion aspect, experiential avoidance. When you think of some habits which people form, like, for example, drugs or even sexual habits, and when they become habits, some hormones are produced which urge the person to repeat those acts. It's an urge because of the production of the hormones. Now, how to deal with that? Can you mention about that? Production of hormones, yeah.
Yeah. So firstly, how I would work with that, and addiction is a big struggle for a lot of people. So it's not simple. But what I would be starting with is starting with their values. What's the kind of person they want to be, and what's the kind of life they want, to get some clarity about whether their current actions are leading them in that direction or not. So get clarity on the direction they want to head. Then it would be Diffusion is only one strategy, and that's about the thoughts. What I would be looking at is what's the urge. You talk about the urge. What's the urge? What's the sensation in their body that's actually having them keep repeating that, like they're driven by that? And then there are other strategies. So I've taught you like a couple of strategies. There's all these different strategies. Some of them help people be in the body to get more connected to the physiological side of it, which is the urges, the sensations, the cravings, all of those, to actually be able to notice them in their body and be able to, what's the word? Observe them rather than be run by them. So ACT is designed to help that observation on a cognitive level, but also with things like addictive urges. And it takes practice and time, but it's about people becoming friends with, and friends is clearly an ambitious word, with those urges, if you like, so that they can notice them when they come up and have ways of breathing into them around those urges, those sensations, getting extra support when those urges come up. Okay, if I didn't do the addictive behavior, what could I be? What do I really need right now? What's the real? I need comfort. I need support. I need a hug. I need something like to increase, back to the flexibility, increase the range of options they have in that moment, rather than the blind reaction to the urge, because they don't know it very well in their body. They're not present to it. It just runs them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Thank you for the Celia. One doubt from me, or one clarification needed from my side. Would you please provide us with an example for radio doom and gloom? One more example.
Radio doom and gloom.
From the
Okay,
interpersonal relationship perspective.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm going to give you a personal kind of one from my radio doom and gloom.
Yeah.
This is okay. So I had a radio doom and gloom that was very much resultant from my childhood and my upbringing. And it just kept repeating, and it repeated in patterns with personal relationships. And my radio doom and gloom is that was that I'm not wanted, and that people aren't going to like me, and that if I put myself out there and have the arrogance to think that I'm really good and everything like that, people are just going to slap me down. Right?
Okay.
So I would have this kind of little, and it was usually when I tried to do something new or when I was in a group environment. So I would just have this little thing, and it wouldn't necessarily be loud all the time. But if I put myself out there and someone didn't respond well, I would start going, oh my God, see, they don't like me. I'm not wanted here. I'm not welcome. I'm better off on my own. Let me just withdraw here. I'm just going to go and do my own thing. That was my radio doom and gloom, because someone out there might have said something that was disparaging to me, or I might have been in a group situation where I wanted to make a good impression and someone said that was terrible or something like that. And then, does that make sense?
Just like the radio, the thoughts keep recurring.
Yeah. Recurring.
Yeah, yes.
Radio doom and gloom. So it's like, okay, there's my internal radio again. That's what it does. It's going to happen. But what am I committed to here? Well, actually, I'm committed to taking risks. I'm committed to growing. I'm committed to being vulnerable. So I'm going to go back in and stay in there rather than run away.
Excellent answer. And Bina, unmute and ask. We are coming to the close of the program. Bina, ma'am, please.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, Bina.
Hello, ma'am. It's a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Could you please explain a sentence? The avoidant event is important. Healthy change often produces painful experiences. So, are there any drawbacks and limitations to acceptance and commitment therapy?
There's many. I don't think, and you are all very experienced practitioners, so you'll have your own opinion about this, but I don't think there's any one theory or therapy that's the right thing for everybody. So I think there are limitations to ACT. And sometimes the limitations can be, as I said earlier, that people don't practice, and so therefore they don't get the strategies. And sometimes people don't resonate with it. They're just like, you know what, I prefer to talk. I just want to do more analytic stuff, or I want to do more inner child work, or I want to do, like, it's just not their thing. But acceptance and commitment therapy is so broad that any mindfulness exercise you want to do, you can put it under the name of acceptance and commitment therapy, because it's about taking a moment to pause. Like if you wanted to, I often say to my clients, let's take a moment. What are you feeling right now in your body as you're talking about this? You know, let's just take a breath. So in some ways I use it not necessarily in totality, like the whole map I showed you. I just might pick something small and it's useful or it's not. It's all trial and error, as you would be aware with your clients. You just need to see what resonates with them, because they're the expert on some level, and with their lives, they're the ones that are having to navigate their own experience. So, yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's
okay.
Thank you.
Manju, do you have something to ask?
So yeah, but one last thing. Sorry, like it's about the practice of this act. Okay, one exercise we have done, right? So in that, like, suppose the person is having a thought, like a negative thought, like no one is ever supporting me, or no one supports me. Fine. So as you said, at first we have to think, or that person has to think that I'm having the thought that no one ever supports me, right? Then that we have to repeat a number of times. Then next time it is to be modified as I notice that I'm having a thought that no one ever supports me, isn't it? After that, you told, like, you have to sing, or in the form of that, in the tune of our happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Okay, so that is only that no one ever supports me, right?
yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Then
Yeah.
then what's the difference? And ultimately that thing only comes into our mind, right?
So
If you repeat.
well, what I say to clients is, I'm like, that exercise gives you lots of options. And usually the client will say, I really liked the comic voice one, or I really liked this one. And so I'm like, practice that one. Practice the part of the exercise that resonated with them. They don't have to practice all of it every time. It's just an opportunity for them to just experiment with. Some of them will be like, I really liked, as soon as they thought, I'm having the thought, that it helped. And sometimes the happy birthday helps, or sometimes, so it's really just giving people choices to notice in themselves, I can have this thought and my experience of that thought changes based on these different exercises I'm doing. That's really the whole point of the exercise. And then they can practice. And I tell them, you can practice, and I say any unhelpful thought. I don't say negative thought, because some negative thoughts are useful. Like, if I jump off this cliff, I'm going to drown. That's a very useful negative thought. So I say any unhelpful thoughts that you might be having, and I say to them, and you can be practicing it as you're driving along in the car, on the way to a work interview, if you're feeling like, a job interview, I can't do this, what's my boss going to say, I'm hopeless, whatever it is. Like, no one will ever notice they're practicing it. So they can practice it whenever they like. They can be singing it to their favorite song on the radio. It doesn't have to be happy birthday. It can be any song they like. So it's just giving them some opportunities to play with it.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much, Celia. Celia, you might have experienced, you might have learned CBT, REBT, DBT, and ACT.
Yes.
Say openly, which is the easiest one for the common man to tame the negative thoughts or automatic thoughts.
I would say,
Tell truth.
Yeah, the truth. The truth. So I think CBT has incredible limitations, because I think, as Manju was saying before, our thoughts and our emotions are always connected, and I think CBT is, so my where I've landed with my 20 or plus years, I won't say how many plus on the 20, is unless we're working with the wisdom of the body and somatically with the feelings and the sensations in our body as well as the mind, I don't think people are really going to be able to let go of trauma. So I think ACT is one of my favorites. ACT and the somatic work. That's why I've gone into that, like listening to the body. What's your body telling you now? If you're, all of that with the cognitive, like bringing them together. But I think that the body has a stronger behavioral and emotional pull. And so I think really that's the foundation.
So
I think ACT is one of my favorites for sure.
And it's comparatively easier also in comparison with
Yeah. It is. It's quite simple, and people get it quickly in that respect as well. Like clients get it very quickly from that perspective.
They might at least learn that a thought can be interpreted in multiple ways.
That's right. And how liberating is that?
Yeah, yes. So that really accelerate the healing process also.
Yeah.
Yes. So we come to the end of the program. It was a fantastic session. It was a beautiful journey with Celia into the fabulous world of ACT. As Dr. Priyanka Bhushan has mentioned, it is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
she has mentioned a lot of ideas. She has alluded to some books. Happiness Trap might be helpful for all of you. And really, we will invite you to further sessions to go deeper into this fantastic topic. I hope that you liked our group. This is your second visit. You were with us when Prantik Panigrahi introduced his own book to the group. Did you really like us?
I love you guys. I live in India. I love India. I'm so delighted that you've invited me into this group, and I'm loving meeting everybody, even if it's just in small ways. And I love the book presentation. I was like, wow, I hope I can present my book that well.
Yeah, definitely you will be presenting the book to our audience. And when you come to Kerala, you will be part of our offline program also.
Yeah, I hope to meet you all in person one day.
I promised you that when you come to Kerala, you will be with us. And when I come to Australia, you do keep up the promise also. Okay?
I will, but I'm in India now. I'm here. You're stuck with me now.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. And secondly, I extend my ineffable gratitude to all the angels who were with us to give their ears to this fantastic talk. And last but not the least, the angels who put their videos on and who took part in the discussion part. Thank you so much. Once again, thanks to Celia for this presentation. And goodbye. We can meet in another beautiful session of Self-Improvement Hub. Kindly remember that from March 2 to 7, we will be having miracle mornings from 5 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. The contents of the miracle mornings will be exclusively for emotional management, not theory, but practice. Let us make our mornings of month of March, miraculous by taking part in those sessions. Thank you so much, Celia, and all the angels. Goodbye from